Good morning, everyone. How are you? Mrs. Brown here. So good to see you here today. I hope you all had a great weekend, and I will be talking today about why do I teach writing? So, again, if this is your first time here, my name is Mrs. Brown, and I am with homeschoolclick.com. For elementary through high school students, I teach writing and grammar classes that lay a foundation for a lifetime of excellent writing. And today I figured instead of talking about what I do, again, I wanted to talk about why I teach writing. I get this question a lot. Why in the world do you teach writing? So I wanted to answer that question for you all today because I think it is wonderful to know not just what people do, but what is the why behind what they do. If you have been here before, but you have not liked or subscribed, make sure, especially if you are watching via YouTube, like or subscribe so that you can be notified when I post new content and videos about writing. Now, the very first reason that I teach writing is number one, I want to be the writing teacher I always wanted. When I grew up, I loved writing. I always had words. I don't know if you have students who have lots of words, but I always had words. I always wrote for myself. I always wrote poetry and all kinds of different things, journaled. And I was a fairly good writer and got really good grades in school when it came to writing. But there were a few times when I was in school and I would go from one teacher to maybe the next year have a different English or grammar teacher. And then my scores were not as high. And so I'm like, well, what did I do differently? I don't think that I changed much. And so for me, one of the reasons I love to teach writing, and particularly use IEW as my base, is because I love that question is never there for a student. They always know what to expect. They always know what they need to do with the checklist to produce a paper that is, meeting that particular rubric. But most of all, what I wanted to was a teacher that like celebrated me, that saw me, that helped me to find my own voice and find my own words and like helped me to find out, okay, Alicia, what is it that you uniquely have to communicate? And I wanted a teacher to pull that out of me. And so that's one thing I love to do when I work with students. I love when students find their own voice and they begin to enjoy writing because they are allowed to play with words and have fun with language. The second reason why I love writing, these are not in any particular order, by the way. My second favorite reason is reaching the reluctant writer never gets old. Absolutely never gets old for me. Now, a lot of times when I meet students and I'm like, oh, okay, what do you want to learn? What do you want to gain from this class? A lot of my students might say things like, I really don't like writing, or I would rather, wash dishes or clean the toilet instead of writing. So I love when I get those students because almost 100% of the time by the end of class, even if they're not, at the end of the class saying, I want to become a writer for, my career, they always learn to enjoy the process of writing and learn that they too can write well. So that for me, never ever, there's no year that gets old when I find a student who's really reluctant, even maybe doesn't like writing at all, who says, Mrs. Brown, even though writing is not my favorite thing and still not my favorite thing, I always loved coming to your class. And you know what? Now I'm not afraid to write. Now I know that I can write. I am so excited about what I've learned in this class. Again, that is one thing that never, ever, ever, ever gets old for me as a writing teacher. The third thing, and this one is more for the parent side of the house, I love to help my parents reach their goals. Now, while I do spend, of course, a significant amount of time with my students week to week, if you're new here and you don't know my story, I homeschooled for 10 years. So I, like many of the parents that I serve, I too was at a point where when I was trying to teach my 4 kids how to write, I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I help them to become excellent writers? How do I finish my curriculum, right? How do I stay consistent? Things of that nature. And so I love most of all, serving who I call my MVPs, my most valuable people. And those are my parents. And so I love being able to take a parent who is like, you know what? Writing has just been something that has been a thorn in our homeschool side. Like it just, we never finish, or it becomes a struggle, or it's just a wrestle between myself and my child. I love that I can not only help the student, that reluctant writer or that writer who doesn't particularly love writing, love it or enjoy it or appreciate it. I love that I can serve my parents who maybe for years writing has been that subject that's been really tricky for them. And so I absolutely love serving my parents. That's another reason that I absolutely love teaching writing. The other thing I hear parents say, particularly with the middle school, high school students, is, and I have teenagers, by the way, so I totally know the struggle of when there's that wrestle between parent and student. So I love being able to be that support around the student and that support around that parent who just need, like, the student just needs somebody else to give them that grade or to say, hey, this is due on this date. So I love being able to do that. I needed that. I had that support. And so now I love being able to be that kind of support for parents who, again, like I said, are my MVPs, my most valuable people. The fourth thing that um, reason why I love teaching writing is I enjoy using my songwriting skills to teach. Now, I know not all teachers have this on their list, but when I was a little girl, I wanted to be Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and all the people. That clearly did not happen, but that's okay. What I do enjoy doing is writing grammar songs. I know it sounds a little strange. I never imagined that like writing grammar songs would be my thing, but I actually love taking a concept that might be one that might be difficult to remember or a challenging concept to grasp. And I love turning that into a song for my students. And the funny thing is, my students love it too. I actually have one student who like has downloaded all of my YouTube songs and listens to my YouTube songs about grammar. So I love that I can take that aspect of who I am and infuse it inside of teaching writing. So I really enjoy that aspect. I know it sounds a little kind of maybe corny, but I enjoy doing that. So again, the before I give you the fifth reason why I love teaching writing. First thing was I want to be the writing teacher I always wanted. I want my students to walk into, well, not walk into because it's online, but to be in my class, to be in my space, and to feel 100% encouraged, 100% supported and seen. Absolutely. And that's not always the space that I had for myself as a student. And that's why I really love to make sure that space is available for the students that come to my classes. I love reaching the reluctant writer. It never gets old. I promise you. I love when my students come in and they tell me they hate writing because it is my goal by the end of the year. Again, maybe they don't want to become published writers at the end of for the rest of their lives. But most of the time, my students say, you know what, Mrs. Brown, I didn't like it. I didn't like writing at the beginning, but you know what? Now I know I can. And I like it a little bit more than I did before I joined your class. And that is just, it's an amazing feeling. Third reason why I teach, I love to help my parents reach their goals. I homeschool for 10 years. I have 4 teens. And I absolutely love when that parent says, you know what, I struggle teaching writing in my homeschool, and your class helped kind of just us to finish. It helped us to get over that hump that we have just been trying to get over for years. That warms my day because again, I had those same subjects in homeschooling where I'm like, oh, we just cannot get through this. Or my students and I wrestled, and I love to again not only come around your student, but to come around my parents. Absolutely love that. Fourth thing I said is I love to write songs for your kids to teach them about different grammar concepts. So again, I know that might not be everybody's story, but I love to do that. It's a great second thing to becoming, singing across the country and the world. I didn't do the Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey thing, but I love singing and writing grammar songs. I know, kind of corny, but that's me. And the fifth reason, last reason, is because communication skills are important in life. They are so important. So, a little fact that you all may not know about me: my BC days, my before children days, and maybe a little bit into having children, I actually was a recruiter. So, I interviewed people and for a living, primarily in financial services. And I also, another very little known fact about me, my BC days, is I worked for the September 11 recovery program in New York. And so I, again, loved that job. I loved that career. But the whole idea of communication skills and those being things that students absolutely need for life, like they're so important. So I always tell my students, what we are learning in this class is not just for this class. It is for life. When I say that I teach elementary through high school students skills that lay a foundation for a lifetime of excellent writing, I mean it. So even when, and I especially with my middle school and high school students, I'm like, when you have to interview for a job, my son just got hired at Chick-fil-A, but I'm like, you know what? You had to write your application. You had to interview. You had to take in a question, process that question, and produce an answer to, for that interviewer, so that that person could understand what value you would bring to the table. And even though you didn't necessarily write that down, the process of thinking about what you want to say, processing that, organizing your thoughts, and then communicating those thoughts, that all is a skill of writing. And that's all a skill. Those are all skills that your students learn inside of my class. Again, this video isn't about IEW because, again, I do love IEW and I think it's a great, great, great curriculum. So I use it. But I do appreciate IEW's process, which allows the student within the way that they present their material. It allows the student to practice those skills over and over and over again. Plan before you write, plan what you want to say, plan what you want to communicate. Those skills, I think, we'll all agree, especially if, us adults who have had some lived experience behind us, we'll all agree that communication is necessary, and communicating well is necessary in every single aspect of our lives, not for jobs, in relationships, with friends, things of that nature. So writing is so important. Those communication skills are so important. And I love that I am able to teach something that students can use for the rest of their lives. So again, I just wanted to take a moment today to tell you why I teach writing, not just what I do, but why I do it. So if you have any questions, of course, you can always find me at homeschoolclick.com, my website. That's where I post all of my classes, so that, again, if you want to reach out to me, you of course can also reach out to me via email at iewithmrsbrown@gmail.com. Of course, you can find that on the homeschoolclick.com website. And then last but not least, I do want to remind you all again, because I know that homeschooling is starting. We are ramping up for our school year. But before we do that, I do have a book club that I host every month for homeschooling moms. And this month we are reading Raising Critical Thinkers by Julie Bogart. And that book club will be meeting on August 28th, which will be my birthday, by the way. August 28th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is free to join. I will drop that link in the show notes. So if you want to join that book club, go to the library, grab that book, go to Audible, whatever you want to do, grab that book and come join other homeschooling moms so that we can encourage each other, have a great discussion. The book is not an easy read in the sense that it is challenging. It will challenge the way we think, but it's an excellent, excellent book. So again, just a quick recap for those who might just be showing up. Why do I love teaching writing? One, I want to be the writing teacher I always wanted to have in school. Two, reaching the reluctant writer. For me, it never gets old. Three, I love to help my parents reach their goals. Four, I enjoy using my songwriting skills to teach. Super fun. My kids get a kick out of that as well. Not my like biological kids, but the ones I teach, they think that's pretty funny or corny sometimes. But at the end of the day, they remember that grammar concept that was taught in the song. And the last thing is communication skills are so important in life. And I love that I get a chance to teach something that is useful for the rest of my students' lives. All right. Well, it was so nice to spend time with you today. I'm happy that I said I was not going to go 30 minutes today. I wasn't going to be on too long. But again, if you want to reach me, you can find me at homeschoolclick.com. And I'm curious, what are some writing goals that you have for your students? Drop those in the show notes and the Facebook and the YouTube. I love to know what your goals are. Or if there's anything else you want me to talk about on my Monday lives, I'm happy to talk about what it is that you want me to bring to the table as it relates to writing. All right, everybody, take good care. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Thanks for